Resuming debate, the honourable member for Essex.
Thank you. I want to first thank our Speaker for granting this debate tonight, a very important debate. We all owe a deep thanks to my colleague and my NDP colleague from Vancouver East for her tireless work on this issue. Indeed, she and I were emailing all weekend long about the impact of this ban in our ridings and our country. I'm proud that we stand here tonight to challenge this ban as a result of an NDP emergency debate. We take this issue incredibly seriously as it impacts the lives of so many Canadians. Indeed, all Canadians, Mr. Speaker, because a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. We are here in this House in response to the extraordinary times that we find ourselves in. We are here to debate the presidential executive order issued by President Trump prohibiting the travel of all refugees and individuals from 7 countries in the Middle East and North Africa. And I repeat this because it seems to me that there is some confusion amongst members of this House as to why we are here and why hundreds of people stood out in the cold tonight to join us in our galleries for this very important debate. We have to let this sink in for a moment, because prior to Friday, I never imagined we would be watching our closest neighbor and ally descend into such a dark moment. To see our fellow Canadians and their families who are from one of the 7 countries struggling under the weight of this ban, a ban that is nothing short of discrimination against our Muslim brothers and sisters from the 7 countries. We aren't here to discount the good work that the government has done to settle refugees in this past year. No one is debating that good work, but we are here to discuss action following the very serious recent executive order from President Trump. Canadians must reject any ban which is based on race, religion, or place of birth. This kind of ban promotes hate and intolerance. In October 2016, this House of Commons unanimously endorsed a motion introduced by the leader of the NDP, the member for Outremont, condemning all forms of Islamophobia. 69,742 Canadians signed the petition and are among those who now call on us to follow through this very important step with action. Right. Likely among the hundreds who are sitting here right now in our galleries or lined up earlier tonight, and those that are at home watching us stand up to this discrimination. The thousands who have flooded our emails and phone lines since Friday. I want to give a quote, because tonight more is being asked of us. And it's a quote from my friend Dr. Maher El-Masri, and he's chairperson of the Windsor Islamic Council. It is no longer enough to denounce Islamophobia. That's right. The rise of anti-Islamic sentiment has reached dangerous levels that threaten the very fabric of our society. This ban will have a disastrous implication for thousands of innocent travelers and refugees. Canada must step up and do its part. We've heard, Mr. Speaker, many members tonight reference their family members or in their past, people who have gone to fight for this country, to fight for the freedoms that we enjoy. Those who went and joined the Allied forces in World War II in Europe, a debate that took place in this very esteemed place where we now sit. And this was not an easy decision. But Canada made a choice to not sit back, but joined the fight. And we are now being called upon to do our part once again. My riding of Essex is on the border of the U.S. We are very closely tied to our American friends and neighbors. Canada needs to secure greater assurances for those traveling to the United States who were born in or have dual nationality with one of the 7 countries listed. Mr. Speaker, our office in Essex has been dealing with a large volume of calls, emails, and messages from constituents from early Saturday, from when the very first implications of the ban were taking place at our borders in Windsor, Detroit. And many people have been affected by this ban. Many professionals in our region cross every day to work and to visit family, and they feel targeted and uncertain. In my riding of Essex, and in particularly in the town of LaSalle, we have many Canadian families and permanent resident holders who were born in one of the 7 banned countries. This weekend, there was a lot of confusion at our border, and the limited information and directions that were given to our local Canadian border agencies was not enough. We were notified that the U.S. officials were not providing the Canadian side with definite instructions, and there was confusion about who could cross, and indeed, people were being denied and returned from the U.S. back to Canada. Meanwhile, our government was silent. We were searching for answers. We were looking for something. We couldn't find anything on any of the official government websites, and I was up very late on Saturday night with my team in Essex, going through these phone calls, trying to answer people's questions, calling our CBSA chief in Windsor, calling over to the U.S., trying to find answers because we simply didn't have them. It was extremely frustrating for us and very difficult for those in our region who were directly impacted because they are dual citizens or permanent residents from one of the 7 countries. It wasn't until Sunday when I heard the new minister speaking at the press conference, and I was pleased to hear the things that he was bringing forward, and I was encouraged that we were moving in the right direction. Unfortunately, we had people, like I said, that were being turned back at our border, and so there was no direction that was being given. And when we listened to the minister in that press conference, and certainly today again, we still have no written agreement with our U.S. partner. We do not know what this ban means. We do not know what they intend to do with it, what countries they intend to look at next. We have not sat down and had formal conversations that are necessary between the 2 countries to ensure that when people want to cross those borders, they can do so confidently. Because I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that that's not the case right now. People are heading across that border uncertain if they'll be able to cross, nervous about whether they'll be stopped, whether they'll be questioned, what will be asked of them. This is not a situation, Mr. Speaker, that we can accept at our Canadian border or from one of our greatest allies. As I said, there was mass confusion, and in the span of 24 hours, we were flooded with individual emails and phone calls from people who were directly impacted. Canada needs additional measures to offer a safe haven for refugees fleeing violence and persecution, and that have been shut out by the United States. And we saw this across airports. We saw airports having mass demonstrations across the country in the U.S. because people were being refused or detained. Mr. Speaker, I remember watching a 5-year-old come out who had been detained, watching 2 senior citizens in wheelchairs who had been detained because they were from one of these 7 countries. So to say that this has not had an impact on people yet, it's impacted people in our closest ally, in our neighbor. It will very soon come to impact people in our own country. But I hope, Mr. Speaker, that we can implement some of the things that we're bringing forward so that we don't have to have someone be impacted. That we can take the approach of being proactive rather than reactive to discrimination. We've all committed to do better. And our constituents and Canadians deserve that. So what can we do? We can lift the 1,000 application cap on privately sponsored refugees and fast-track refugees whose applications in the U.S. were previously approved. We can list hundreds of successful stories of refugees in my riding. I've heard it from all sides of this House tonight, the success story of refugees. So why not lift that cap and welcome more people into our country who have already been screened and vetted to the highest degree? We can certainly do so with safety, and we should partner with our international partners to ensure that that happens. We have private groups that are ready and willing for this to happen. The government must immediately suspend the Safe Third Country Agreement with the United States, as we can no longer have confidence that the U.S. provides safe haven for refugees. The member for Vancouver East has pointed this out repeatedly. This can be done immediately. I have yet to hear a commitment from this government to suspend the agreement to protect the most vulnerable who are caught in this web. These are dark days, and we cannot turn our eyes away and pretend that this will not impact us. In Windsor, Essex, as I said, we are very close to our U.S. neighbors, and we must stand up for everyone. I want to read a message that I received from one of my constituents, Mr. Speaker. This discrimination should not go silent. Canada should be a voice for the voiceless. Right. Also granting entry to those that have already received the rigorous vetting and should come to Canada. Please, like so many Canadians, we call for humanity to come back. This is the call of Canadians, Mr. Speaker, tonight, and there are actions that can take place above and beyond what the minister has mentioned so far. And again, we need to push further. This is who we are as a country. We don't sit back and watch this happen to our closest neighbor, to our friends and family. We stand up and say that we defy this ban. It's discriminatory and we will not accept it.
Hear, hear.